Look at all the billet beautifulness. He will run every engine just to make sure it fires, runs and works before sending it out to customers. Welcome to another video. We've come to this little workshop which is MED race engines. This is the main guy in Northern Ireland for C20XE builds. We're talking 300 horsepower NEXEs. I couldn't resist coming over and having a look and sharing knowledge, sharing information. So let's dive into this beautiful little workshop at the side of his house and let's see where all the magic happens. So this is a little dream workshop. Now this is only one of the workshops. This is solely for engine building and assembling. A little bit of crank work on the lathe, but it is mainly for assembly. So this here is a 1600 16 valve engine, which he tells me had a problem with mid-range power. So he's took it out and they're respecing the camshafts for a better spec, which will be more suited for how the gentleman drives. These three are 2.1 C20XEs with all the toys and all the magic. So as you can see, Omega high lift pistons, the full dry sump kit, beautifully built and super clean. Again, this one's a little bit further on, and as you can see, a Titan dry sump kit, beautifully SPD adjustable cams, all the bracing on the tensioners and rollers, which is very interesting because I've never seen one of these in person. So it's nice to see that, how it's braced and the two roller sizes. So very interesting. Look at all the billet beautifulness. So that's a stunning engine. This one is a 1600, 16 valve again, just in for the refresh and just basically a once over. Never seen one of these before. Now this is to, as far as I know, is to measure valve spring force to see whether there's any issues, any problems. The valve springs are all measured, weighted, and before they're put in the engine, so they're all matching. So he can work out basically seat pressure of every single valve for when he builds his engine. A valve grinder, a flat, shim grinder. Again, another XE engine. I think that's a 2.1 again, ready to be assembled. XE cylinder head with all the toys, a lot of SPD stuff, solid lifters. As we can see, what they look like, cat cams, 2.5 pistons. So we'll get to that. So what the XEs do, they do a stroker engine as well to a 2.5. So I'll show you the blocks in a second. So this must be to match one of the blocks over the other side for the 2.5 build. We've then got the beautifully cylinder head with the throttle bodies. Really nice CNC work on the throttle bodies. I don't know what make they are. I've never seen them before, but all billet CNC'd. Really nice job. Again, I would have thought that's in for cam specs building up. I wonder if that's for another one of the 2.5 builds. Now this is an interesting find. This is a gentleman who found 5 years ago a brand new unused Corsa cylinder head and has sent it here obviously for building. So what Ricky does is he'll send these cylinder heads for CNC machining. He'll have them on CNC machine to his specification. But what he did tell me is this little dimple here is where before he assembles them, he does a hardness test to make sure the heads have not had excessive heat cycles. This just shows the kind of detail he goes into when building these engines. There's a lot of secrets I can't really express. We have talked a lot about stuff we do, and we are definitely coming in the future to talk to this man with the touring car stuff. And this is very much like the touring car stuff. Sines rods, again, 2-ringed pistons, lightweight pistons rather than the 3 ones that we're kind of used to with the turbo builds. And this is a dry sump gear for the early dry sump kits, which we're discussing that because we use them on the touring cars, where a lot of that type of stuff is thrown in the bin because it goes for all the new stuff. So for us, for the touring cars, there could be some little goodies tucked away in drawers that we can use. This here is what you call the 2.5 build on an XE. These things will make a reasonable 300 horsepower and they will rev beautifully. Again, dry sump kit, really nicely done. And this is to show how these are made. So you have a steel crank, which is, I think it's 100mm stroke. And then you use the Frontiera 2.2 block, which you can see there is 10mm deck height higher than a normal block. They then wedge them like they do on the Z-lets, bore them to, I think it's 88mm, I can't remember off the top of my head, he told me, bores them, pistons. That's what makes the XE 2.5 engine. And there's another one just there. So this is a beautiful workshop full of XE heaven. And then it doesn't even show is this machine, the flow bench for the cylinder heads. So that he will go into full detail of showing of what the cylinder heads flow, how they flow it, what helps, what doesn't help. It isn't all smokes and mirrors. The machine doesn't lie. So that's going to be a really good opportunity for us for when we move forward on rebuilding the engine in the touring car. We are going to possibly come over to Northern Ireland to see Ricky, to bring various development years of cylinder heads to put on the flow bench. So we're talking about bringing the very first Swindon head. We're talking about possibly trying to get a reverse Swindon head, a UK CNC'd head, and we'll put them all against Ricky's CNC head to basically, not to say who's best or anything else, for literally for an educational purpose to see what possibly flows better. Was the reverse head the best design? Was there something Swindon knew that no one else knew? What is it that made them so magical and to flow so much air? Which is the best design? So we're hoping, fingers crossed, that's going to happen soon and we're going to come back over. He will run every engine just to make sure it fires, runs and works before sending it out to customers. So he has this little test jig over here. What's really nice is now it's another contact for myself, who's now, we've been speaking for probably the past hour about engines and what we found with the drag engines and the turbo engines. He's passed advice on to me, I've passed advice on to him, and it's just another relationship build for not only for my car and my engines, but for also to pass the knowledge some on to you guys, and to also to help us with our platform of the touring cars, because it is nothing better than keeping them cars alive, because I think you can all agree, when them things are screaming around a racetrack, they sound amazing. It's also the point of, we're learning. For me, who does the Vauxhall engines, it's not often you get the Swindon heads and to have a look at them, to mess with them. And we'll bring some Swindon blocks as well. Because have you worked on the blocks?
No, I haven't done any. I haven't seen any Swindon blocks. Cast iron or aluminium? Cast iron. Is that like a special mould?
On the reverse heads, there's a few bits and pieces where they've like they cut the starter motor mount off. There's a few bits on the block you machine, deeper oil galleries, some other bits and pieces you put in there. But again, we'll bring one over and you can have a nose in and what have you. The impression I get with you want to educate more and more. So a bit like myself, I love to stand in front of different engines and see how different people have done it. And especially when Money No Object was with the Swindon, I get excited when you go, well, this is the Swindon head, and you're like, well, what's been done different? Yeah. So to show you and you to have a look at them and to stick them on the machine and to experience it, I think it'd be good for all of us to have a know. A lot of my stuff, obviously, because I drag race the Corsa with the LETs in them, I deal with a lot of the XE engines, a lot, and I speak to a lot of people about them, and I've seen, you've probably seen just as many, and it's nice to see the development and how people make powered and how they rev, because again, going to the touring car, speaking to Jim this morning, he would like your advice on some cams, because obviously you can see different cam profiles doing different things, because he says his power band is for around 6,000 to 8,000 RPM. He was looking for it. We're going to bring a set of cams over that are out the original head for you to look at, and then you can say whether they're good enough or not good enough, or what you think is the best route to go down. Also, to help you with what you're doing is, if we can have, I don't know, let's say we have the 4 heads that we have, standard, Swindon reverse, Swindon factory 1, UK CNC, your CNC, and you can go through all 5 and go, these are the graphs and this is what it's pulling. And hypothetically, we don't know, yours is the best of the top.
That's right.
Then that's showing That's showing your work, and that's showing that you physically can measure that as well.
I actually sent, whenever I found out, these heads here flows with 166 CFM. And I haven't found a head, I'm not just saying this, but I haven't found another Vauxhall head that flows anymore.
Actually, the most powerful ones, well, if I say the three most powerful engines I know is the billet block in Brazil with Kakas, which is about 2,000, 2,500 horsepower. These Tysons in Malta, which makes about 2,000 horsepower billet block. And then these Nassans in South Africa, who makes about 1,500 horsepower on a cast block and a stock head. Yeah. Blows up a lot, but in South Africa you can't get the parts, so right. He does that. But these things are all over the world, and the community of who run these is very, very small, and we all know each other who's doing what, and we all try and help each other. And because, stupid as it sounds, we all hoard parts.
That's right.
Because we all run them, and you're like, can't find them.
Could you not get Cometic to make you a gas?
Don't like Cometics.
Don't use them?
Don't use them.
What about Athena?
Don't like them.
Don't like them either?
Never. I would never use them. The best gasket I have ever found is the new Astra VXR one. A Victor Rhines, £30 steel gasket, and I will guarantee, I promise you might think you will never blow that gasket if you try.
And what thickness is
it? Thickness is 1.3 mil.
Same as the XE.
Same as XE, but you can drill the rivets out on two of them and reshim them to whatever thickness you want.
But they come 1.3.
They come 1.3. Right. So we'll always use that, and I'm talking 3 bar to boost, and you'll never blow that gasket.
Right.
Athena, I ran Cometics. We did one dyno session, started pushing water.
That's a VXR LET engine.
Yeah, VXR LET.
Is that an Ecotech block?
Yeah, they're an open deck block. They're almost identical to that block, but they're an open deck. Mm-hmm. They wedge the blocks to make them closed deck. It's all right. They do reasonable horsepower, but the problem then is as soon as you start going, which again, I know you do about 250, 300 horsepower cars, when we see around the 700, 750, it pushes the crank out the bottom.
Right.
Splits the block in half and pushes the crank out. Because what we do is we try and make it as rigid as possible. So we'll put a bracing girdle on, we'll wedge the block, but then it gets too rigid and it blows it out the bottom. Yeah, I would never ever use one of them, ever. I hang them on they're in my garage. I hang on the wall as ornaments.
That's Chris Turbo.
No, from what I can gather is, and I spoke to someone about this. So when you go to an egg gasket manufacturers like Athena and Cometic, they buy all the old machines from people like Victor Rhines and massive gasket companies. The massive gasket companies buy new machines, so everything gets passed down the line. So the thing that I got told about the gaskets, because we had a discussion with the guy at Cometic at one of the shows, they try and put a raised firing ring in the steel. Cometics, Athenas and all that struggle because it's the old school machinery. They put one on, not the greatest, doesn't really work very well. You look at the Z-let one, perfect. Beautifully machined in, pressed as great as it goes.
New tooling.
And it clamps around because new tooling, new machines. Okay, yeah. That's why that gasket at 30 quid far out exceeds the old machine one. Hence us using them. So I'm going to sign this one off to be able to stand and talk to Ricky, get some bits of advice, to listen to some stories, and basically to be invited into his workshop to be able to film and show. It shows that it isn't all smokes and mirrors. He's an open book and he's willing to help, he's willing to discuss, and he's willing to show us what this is all about to help us in the future and to also possibly give him a bit of work in the future. I hope you enjoyed that. Something a bit different away from the car builds, but anyone who's a Vauxhall nut and who's a C20XE nut will understand that I couldn't resist this and I had to come along. We'll sign this one off. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you on the next video.